Okay, today's Q&A is about alcoholic beverages, and the question is, the person would like to know, can you give me just a quick rundown of the potential kashrus issues with liquor and beer? So, I'm going to explain them, and before we get to them, it's worth noting that there are two things that make it a little more complicated, the kashrus for these items, a little more complicated than other foods. And the first is that there's typically no legal requirements that there be a list of ingredients on the package, which makes it hard to know actually what's in there. And the second is that most alcoholic beverages do not have kosher certification. So I don't have a way to know what the ingredients are, and I don't have someone, a rabbi who's overseeing it to make sure that it's okay. So those are things that make things more complicated. So now let's get to the potential issues, and there are four potential issues with alcoholic beverages and beer. And the first is, the basic recipes for these items, like bourbon and beer, tequila, etc., are pretty straightforward. And they're use pretty simple ingredients that don't have kashrus concerns. However, companies use all types of other ingredients to improve and distinguish their product from their competitors down the road. So traditionally, the issue was always a question of that wine would be added on, which is stam yain, which would be not kosher. But in more recent years, people have started adding things like flavors and lactose, that's sugar that comes from milk, or oysters or clam juice, and all kinds of other things that you would never dream that someone would add to a liquor. And in order to know whether that is or is not a concern in a particular item, the person really needs to know the regulations and the practices in an industry. Meaning, what does the law say Scotch is allowed to have or not allowed to have, or sake? And in fact, aside from what the law says, this law might allow things, but maybe practices do more or less. So a person really needs to know that to know how much of a concern this first issue is. The second is, even if my beverage that I'm holding we know it only has innocuous ingredients in it. The question is what else is produced on the same equipment, produced or distilled on the same equipment as the product that I have in my hand? And that issue is more of a concern when I'm dealing with a small manufacturer like a craft brewery, where they may have many products and they're all made in small batches and on shared equipment. But it's an issue, potential issue, even in larger manufacturers, but it's more pronounced at the small places which have less equipment and many more products, many different products. Okay. A third issue is that for who knows how long, people have always aged liquors to make the beverages flavor get more mature and improve the flavor. Okay, and aging per se wouldn't be an issue, but many more companies have started aging their products in barrels that used to hold non-kosher wine, such as sherry wine or port wine. And now, there's quite a debate, halachic debate, about whether the wine absorbed in the barrels affects the kashrus of the liquor. A simple reading of the Gemara and the earlier poskim would tell you that it's not an issue. Even if the barrel used to hold non-kosher wine, it does not affect the liquor. But poskim and more contemporary poskim, some of them understand those sources differently. And some people say that even if that's what the din was way back when, the fact that companies now specifically want that flavor to get into their food might affect the halacha as well. And our last issue is an outgrowth of this third one, and that is as follows. Since most whiskey is aged, that means is that if the owner of the company is a Jewish person, he will invariably own whiskey over a Pesach. If you age something for 3 years or 5 years, you pass by that many Pesachs from the time he produces it till it gets sold in the stores. So he needs to sell the whiskey before Pesach, so he doesn't own it. If he doesn't do mechiras chametz, he doesn't sell his whiskey before Pesach, then that whiskey will become usher as chametz love of Pesach, and it's usher for him and for everybody forever. Now, you might say, come on, what are the chances that this is going to be, that there's a Jewish person who owns these companies? But most people will be surprised to hear that there are quite a number of prominent whiskey companies that are owned by Jewish people. Some of them do mechiras chametz every year, and they avoid this issue, but others do not. And again, in order to know what items are or not a problem, a person really has to understand the industry and know the players and know which things are or not subject to this concern. So for all these four reasons, it's obviously best for a person to buy alcoholic beverages which have hashgacha. Alternatively, that's not possible, or that's not reasonable. A person should look at the list of approved items, lists that are created by people who are reputable and who really understand enough about the industry and about the halachic issues to make a decision on which items to drink.